Let's dive right into our battle plan to beat the SIE today by tackling the totally absurd global economy. Honestly, trying to memorize international economic factors by just staring at a textbook is a one-way ticket to snoozeville. So we're going to break this down visually, step by step, and have some fun with it. But right before we get to the wild domino effect of global trade, this explainer is brought to you by CertFuel. They've got a full SIE course packed with adaptive study quizzes, smart flashcards, and unlimited practice exams that are weighted just like the real thing to get you totally exam ready. Check them out at certfuel.com. All right, let's get into the material. Here's our game plan. 1. GDP versus GNP. 2. The balance of payments. 3. Exchange rates. 4. Connecting the dots. And 5. A rapid-fire recap.
Okay, Section 1, GDP versus GNP, or where it's made versus who made it.
Now, you've got to pay close attention to the strict distinction here between physical borders and citizenship. Gross domestic product, GDP, is the total value of all goods and services produced within U.S. borders. It literally doesn't matter who produces it. If it's sitting on U.S. dirt, it's GDP. Gross national product, or GNP, on the other hand, is the total value of goods and services produced by U.S. citizens and companies, regardless of where they are in the world. It's all about ownership. I want you to use this exact memory aid on exam day. Seriously, burn this into your brain. GDP asks, where was it made, while GNP asks, who made it? If you can just remember that simple phrase, you're going to effortlessly dodge one of the most common tricks on the test. Let's test that out right now. Imagine our friend Ivy the investor decides to oversee the construction of a massive Japanese auto factory smack in the middle of Ohio. Okay, pause the explainer for a second. Think about Ivy's new auto factory. And tell me, does this count toward US GDP or US GNP? Did you get it? The crucial point here is that this is a huge exam trap. Since the factory is physically sitting on US soil in Ohio, it counts as US GDP. Remember, where was it made? In the US. But because it's a Japanese company, it does not count toward US GNP. Who made it? A Japanese company. Don't let them bait you with these tricky geographic word problems. And while we're on the topic of GDP, lock this number in your head right now. 2. 2 consecutive quarters of declining real GDP is the commonly cited definition of a recession. Not nominal GDP, mind you, because that doesn't account for inflation, but real GDP. 2 consecutive quarters. Keep that single number totally locked down. Moving right along to Section 2, the balance of payments, tracking the money. So the balance of payments works kind of like a giant financial teeter-totter. On one side, you have the current account, which tracks the trade in physical goods and services. On the flip side, you have the capital account, which tracks investment flows, stuff like foreigners buying U.S. stocks, bonds, and real estate. The big takeaway? A deficit on the current account side is typically offset by a surplus on the capital account side. They balance each other out perfectly. Let's bring in Sam the student. Now, Sam has an absolute, uncontrollable obsession with imported European cheese. He buys absolute mountains of the stuff, which contributes to the U.S. running a trade deficit in the current account. Okay, pause the explainer again. Does a trade deficit mean Sam is importing less cheese? Watch out, because the test will absolutely try to bait you here. Exam trap. A deficit does not mean we're importing less. Actually, it means the exact opposite. A trade deficit means we're spending more abroad, like Sam aggressively buying all that cheese, than the U.S. earns from selling its own goods overseas. Deficit literally just equals buying more than we sell. All right, on to Section 3, exchange rates, also known as the currency teeter-totter. You see, when currency values shift, it creates this massive ripple effect. A strong, appreciating dollar makes U.S. imports cheaper, which is absolutely amazing for U.S. consumers like Sam. But it makes U.S. exports way more expensive, which is terrible news for U.S. exporters like Ivy. A weak, depreciating dollar flips the whole script. It makes imports more expensive, which hurts consumers, but makes exports cheaper, which is great for exporters. I need you to remember this exact phrase for the exam. A strong dollar is like having a coupon at a foreign store. It stretches your buying power abroad. Sam's dollars suddenly buy way more European cheese because his currency is stronger than the euro. He absolutely loves a strong dollar. But let's see how this builds for an exporter like Ivy. Why exactly does a strong dollar hurt her? Well, step 1. Ivy prices a U.S. tractor at $50,000. Step 2. The dollar strengthens 25% against the euro. Step 3. To the European buyer, that exact same tractor now costs 62,500 euros. So step 4, Ivy hasn't changed her price. She's still only getting 50 grand, but because the buyer's cost just skyrocketed in their local currency, European demand plummets. The hit Ivy takes is in lost sales volume, not lower revenue per unit. So never forget this exam trap. A strong dollar is fantastic for consumers, like Sam buying imports. It's that glorious coupon at a foreign store. But it is absolutely terrible for exporters, like Ivy selling her tractors overseas. Strong dollar equals cheap imports and really expensive exports. Time for Section 4, Connecting the Dots. Let's look at the domino effect. Let's bring in Riley, the representative from the Federal Reserve, to explain how just one policy move creates a massive domino effect. Riley explains that when the Fed raises interest rates, it kicks off a huge chain reaction. Higher U.S. rates mean U.S. bonds are paying higher yields. Naturally, foreign investors want those yields, so they sell their currency to buy U.S. dollars. That big surge in demand strengthens the dollar. And as we just learned, a strong dollar makes imports cheaper and exports more expensive. Ultimately, as consumers buy more of those cheap imports, the trade deficit widens. It all starts with Riley at the Fed pulling that one interest rate lever. All right, we made it to Section 5, Rapid Fire Exam Recap. These are your top testable points. First up, keep these strict definitions of economic output permanently locked in your memory. GDP asks, where was it made? It's strictly about physical borders. GNP asks, who made it? It's about citizens and companies, regardless of where they are on the map. Second, remember that balance of payments teeter-totter? A deficit in the current account, which just means we're importing more goods than we export, is typically offset by a surplus in the capital account, meaning foreign investment is flowing right into the U.S. Third, the currency domino effect always dictates that a strong dollar is a sweet coupon at a foreign store for U.S. consumers buying imports, but it acts like a giant brick wall for U.S. exporters trying to sell their goods overseas. And finally, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought experiment to really test your knowledge of that entire chain reaction we just built. If Riley at the Fed lowers interest rates tomorrow, trace that all the way through the domino effect. What happens to the dollar, and ultimately, what happens to the price of Sam the student's imported cheese? Figure that out, and you've completely mastered this unit. Thanks for watching this explainer, and good luck studying.